Welcome back, guys. We're going to be continuing with Project 4 Mil. Today is going to be part 4. Today we're going to be disassembling the bottom end and splitting our cases. Alright guys, so we're back here. We're about to start disassembling this bottom end. First and foremost, for those of you that celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a Merry Christmas. And for those of you who don't, hope you're having a good holiday. So we're about to jump right into it here. If you guys recall, in the last video, I finished up because I wanted to drain the oil. This thing still had oil in it, and there was also some antifreeze that had dropped down below our crank. It's all cleaned out now, or at least for the most part. Just when I took the cylinders off, the antifreeze kind of ran down there, and I didn't want that getting all over the place when we split these cases. So the oil is drained. I got most of that antifreeze out. About to start popping pieces off here. Probably going to take this plate off here because I might refinish that. Oops. Might refinish this here. Not 100% sure, but we're going to start with the kicker. Probably take this off. Take our water pump cover off, which we don't actually have to do, but I want to polish up these cases, so we're going to take that off anyway. And then we'll get on to taking off this clutch side, all the components in there. And the stator side is complete. If you guys want to see that, check out my last video. And then we're going to get to splitting these cases. All right, first thing I'm going to take off is our kicker. You can see I have an Allen bolt right here. Once again, guys, I stated in the last video, I have a stainless steel bolt kit here. So if you have different bolts, they're most likely Phillips head screws. That's the reason I have the stainless steel bolt kit. It's going to be the same process, but if you see different stuff, that's the reason why. So I'm going to go ahead, remove this bolt. It's got to come all the way out because this shaft right here is actually slotted for that bolt to run through. I'll show you once I take it out. So we'll take that out, and then we'll slide off this kicker. Now my kicker slid right off, but if you have trouble with this thing and it's stuck on there, you can jam, or not jam, but you can tap a flathead or any kind of wedge-shaped object in here, and it'll split this a little bit and make it so your kicker pops right off. You can do the same thing with your shifter. And on this shaft right here, this little cutout right here, that's what I was talking about. When that bolt goes through, it sits in there and it rides in that groove, so that even if the bolt comes loose, the kicker won't come off. All right, next up, I'm going to take off this Yamaha plate. This thing doesn't really do anything. You'll see behind the case, it's just flat aluminum. You could actually run it without this if you really wanted. They also make custom pieces. They're usually aluminum that say different things, or it has like a picture of a skull or whatever the heck you really want. So I'm going to take that off right now, just because, like I said, I want to clean that up, and I also want to polish the cases, even if I don't paint this. So that's going to come off, and then we'll go ahead and take off our water pump cover. Oof, man, does that engine look ugly without those covers on there. Alright, so before I go ahead and take this clutch cover off, I'm going to remove this line because it's attached back here. That runs into the water pump up here, so if I take off the clutch cover, it's going to be hanging by this. So I'm going to remove the line up here. I'm also going to take this bracket off. I'm going to remove this one as well. This is for the clutch cable, and this one just has a loop in it that this line runs through. So I'm going to take both of those off. And I'm also going to remove this radiator hose right here, or coolant hose, just to get it out of the way. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and move our clutch cover. Before I get started, just want to remind you guys, you do not have to take off your water pump cover. You're going to remove 9 bolts all the way around the clutch cover. All right, let's get it off. I'm going to see if I can just pull this cover off. Sometimes you can. This one's stuck on there pretty good. No problem though. There are some small tabs around the clutch cover. There's also one up front which you can't see. And what I'm going to do is just take my dead blow, Give it a couple soft taps, and that should be enough to break it loose. Alright, well this thing's really on there, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a board and a regular hammer and try to come in from the other side. I'm going to spin the motor around and we'll get a little bit of a better blow. Unfortunately, when the motor's not mounted, it can be hard to get a really nice hit on it because when you're hitting, the whole damn motor is moving around and stuff. So let's see if the board and hammer works. There we go, no problem. Alright, now we should be able to wrestle this thing off. Just take your time. Don't want to force anything. There we go. Did pretty good, not really making much of a mess here. See the inside of the clutch cover. So that was no problem. So if you guys remember, this is a Chariot clutch basket. We put that in when we replaced our original clutch basket because if I remember correctly, the fingers were really worn and grooved out on the original basket. And also my cushions were so bad, there was play in my basket. If you have play in your basket, it's probably time for some new cushions. I do have a video on that if you guys want to check it out. But for now, we're going to take off our springs, take off our clutch pack, our faceplate here, our pressure plate, and get this clutch and primary drive gear off. Alright, so to remove this nut here, you're going to have a lock washer, or you should have one. Sometimes they're missing, or the lock washer tabs are broken off. You will have a lock washer though normally, and we're going to have to bend this tab down so that it can spin free. And then once that's bent down, I'm going to use a rag and just hold my clutch pack and break it loose with an impact gun. If you don't have an impact gun, you can get a clutch holding tool. You can get them on eBay really cheap. Or something I saw, actually saw it on South Texas Banshee's YouTube page. He's doing on his 4-mil build. He made a clutch holding kit, or a clutch holding tool, out of 2 plates welded to a screwdriver. And that actually makes the tool very cheap and easy, so that's an option for you too. So I'm going to go ahead and use the impact to get this off. But before I take that off, I want to break this nut loose because once we take our basket and our primary drive gear off, it's going to be hard to hold this thing from spinning. So the manual suggests jamming a rag in here to prevent this from spinning while you're loosening this. I like to use an aluminum nail, and this is aluminum, so it's going to have give in it before the gears actually would break or anything. So I'm just going to take this here, whoops, and wedge it in the teeth, and that will prevent this from spinning when I break this loose. Alright, so that's broken loose. I'm going to leave it on there for now. Now you can pull your clutch pack out if you want. I'm going to keep everything together though, because it's going to be going back in the same way. This is a good clutch. If you guys are wondering, these clutch discs, the clutch kit itself is a heavy-duty clutch from Driveline Performance. I talked to the guys over there, and this should hold up just fine with the 421 kit, at least for a little bit. It only has maybe 5 hours on it, so I'm going to leave this in here how it is. And we'll remove this sleeve and this washer back here. Now's a good time to remove your ball and push rod. If you don't do it now, you might forget about it, and these things fall out of the they'll fall right out of there and you won't even notice they're gone. Then you'll be looking for them later, or you'll put this thing back together without it in there, and then you're going to have some problems. Alright, so now we can remove this nut comes right off since we had that loose. Got our washer here. This is our water pump gear and our primary drive gear. Sometimes this can be a little tight. Well, my primary drive gear is stuck. It's no problem though. Once I get these cases split and we pull the crank out, I'll be able to get a puller on here with nice jaws and pull this right off without worrying about breaking the teeth or anything. So we're going to leave that on there for now. Alright, so now I'm going to remove the kick axle. Take our spring off. Pull this out. We'll remove the kick idle gear. Got a little snap ring on here. Comes right off. And now our shift lever literally just pulls right through. Now I'm going to take the stopper lever off. You got to be careful because this is spring loaded. And last thing I'm going to take off here is this cam stopper plate. Believe it or not, guys, we're getting ready to split the cases here. Got these bolts on top, then there's nuts on the bottom. So I'm going to flip this motor over and we're going to do the nuts first. So we're here at the underside of the motor. I have the bottom end propped up on a 2x4 just because I didn't want to be resting on the studs on the other side of the motor. Now, before I take off these 8 bolts, or nuts rather, I'm going to remove these motor mounts. These are 14mm bolts. I'm just going to break them free really quick. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove these 8 nuts. Now the manual suggests to do a quarter turn at a time until they're all loose, and the whole idea is so that you don't warp the cases or crack anything. I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern with the impact gun. I don't think I should have a problem. I believe there's a 12mm from the factory. Mine are 13s because this is an aftermarket stainless steel bolt kit. So we'll go ahead and break them loose. Now I'm going to flip the motor over so we can get the bolts on top. So now we're at the top side of the motor. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts up here. 8 if you include the bolt that we took out before with our little wire or hose loom, and 9 if you want to include the one for the clutch wire, or clutch cable rather. This one doesn't actually have to come out because it's so shallow, it doesn't go through the case. So technically there's 9 bolts on the top. Right now we have 7 because we removed this 8th one with our hose loom. So I'm going to go ahead and do just like we did with the bottom and kind of go in like a crisscross pattern with my impact gun and just kind of bust them loose little by little and then pull them all out. Alright, so now we should be able to tap these cases apart. So here's what we're working with on the inside. Have our transmission in the back and our crank up front. I think this crank is actually okay. I think it survived the blast. Both of these rod bearings feel nice and smooth. This one was a little bit tight before, but I think there was like a piece of piston skirt or something that had fallen down there. If you look in there, you can see, let me focus here, come on. There's little bits of piston and wrist bearing, you know, from when this thing blew up all the way down there in the crankcase. But I do think this crank is okay. The up and down play pretty much feels like none on both sides. Same thing on this side. So we'll see what I'm going to do with that. Not 100% sure. So first thing I'm going to do is take that transmission out. That will just pull right out. And there's little clips in here in these channels. There was one there and there was one here too that actually got stuck to the transmission. Just make sure you pull those out, because otherwise they're going to fall out and you're going to lose them. Alright, now to remove these shift forks, we have to pull these two bars out, and to get them out we got to do a couple things. So in here you can see these little clips. There's one there and there's one here. You can see it sitting on the end of that bar. We have to take those clips out, and then right here you can see this little stopper plate is going to stop that bar from pulling through. So we have to flatten out this tab, take this nut off, and then that bar will slide through, and once we slide through, these shift forks will pull right up, and then we'll be able to take our shift drum out after that. First thing I'm going to do is get these little clips off. It should pull right off. Now we'll get this bolt off. Alright, now that that stuff is off, we can pull these rods right through and take our shift forks off. Now I'll pull my shift cam through, and the transmission is out. And last but not least, guys, we're going to pull this crank out. There it is. These are pieces of piston, wrist pin bearing. Over here you can see them. Some needle pins from the bearing and the wrist pin. But it looks like our cases are in good shape, actually. One last thing, don't forget to remove these circlips, just like we had back here. Now if you guys remember, my primary drive gear was stuck on our crank. So I have this puller on here. The jaws are nice and deeply in there, so it shouldn't harm our gear. And I'm just going to tighten this up, and it's already, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's pulling the gear right off. Alright guys, so here are our cruddy case halves. You can see how grimy these things are. Really, really grimy. Now I'm going to be taking out a couple things real quick. I'm not going to show you guys, but this little coolant line right here, there's a little ring back here. I'll pull that off, and this will push right through. And also, I took this shift arm off, or the clutch arm. That just pulls right out with the spring. Nothing to it. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been giving me crap for leaving these cases so dirty and doing motor work. Now, you guys are right. You should take these things, clean them up before you go opening up a motor, because when you open up a motor with dirt on it, dirt is inevitably going to get inside and get all your internal components dirty. Now, for me, it didn't really matter because I'm going to be cleaning all the internal components anyway. You still should clean the motor cases. Now, the reason that I didn't do it is because I want to have a nice contrast, just to show how you can take super dirty, cruddy cases and make them look like brand new again. So I'm going to do a nice before and after What I'm going to be doing is throwing these cases in some boxes, and I'm going to bring them to work with me tomorrow. And after work, I'm going to clean them up in the parts washer. And then I'm going to be sending these things off to DBC Racing to get them vapor blasted. By the way, guys, DBC hooked me up with some sprockets and brake pads. I went with a 40 tooth in the rear and a 15 tooth in the front. Now, the reason I went with that combo is due to some research I did online. Supposedly, some other guys are running 1540 with 4 mils running, woods riding. So I'm going to try that out. Plus, I got a nice new set of brake pads when my rear pads go. It's going to be really nice. So thank you, DBC Racing, for sending that stuff out. Now, if you guys want to check out DBC Racing, you can check them at dbcracing.com. You can also check them out on Instagram at DBC Racing. All right, guys, so for today's video, that's going to be it. Remember to check me out on Instagram at Sabo350. If you guys like this video, as always, please remember to give me a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe as well if you do like this content and you want to see more of it. But until the next one, guys, have a happy new year, and I'll see you then.